Hey, we have a very special guest today. He needs no introduction, but we'll give it to him anyway. He's our favorite political activist, author, lecturer, former presidential nominee. His latest book is called, here it is, it's called The Fake President. Talks about decoding the Donald Trump gaslighting, corruption, and his general bullshit. Please welcome back to the show. Great, a patriot American, Ralph Nader. Hi, Ralph. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for really free speech television.
Okay, but no problem. Listen, let's get right to the book. I want to get to your dedication. So in the dedication, you dedicated to Moses Gary Green and to all the children who deserved lives of decency and justice, right? So that was Moses Gary Green was born on February 7, 2019. And then at the bottom, it says it's also dedicated to Trump-leaning voters who should do some political homework to discover how he's harming American families, hoping for a better future. Wow. So are you really aiming this book at Trump voters?
Yeah, very much so. Not entirely. This is a real handbook for activists on the ground who want to count and be meaningful in the coming election. So it's for everybody. But the epilogue I wrote, Jimmy, is dedicated to Trump voters because I don't like to give up on any voters. I don't think they should be stereotyped. Trump voters are by no means all the same. They have different reasons that they voted for Trump 2016. A lot of them voted because they couldn't stand Hillary, and he was the only one they saw on the block. He promised them the moon, promised them more manufacturing jobs, cleaner air, cleaner water, perfect health care, a wall on the border paid by Mexico, a great tax cut. And he betrayed them right down the line. None of that is happening. He promised big time cutting drug prices. He didn't cut any drug prices. He hasn't put the wood to these gouging drug corporations who are being subjected to taxpayer subsidies, and the sky's the limit for gouging people who are very, very sick. So this is an attempt to say, okay, you've had 4 years, you got to rethink this. And if you don't like who the Democrat is, write in your own vote. Vote for a third party. Don't stay home. That's the important thing. This idea of Trump voters thinking that they can once again vote for a president without doing their homework, not even the kind of work they do for their favorite sports team, has got to be directly discussed. We shouldn't disrespect anybody. We shouldn't tamper with anybody. This book is usable. It's a handbook. It makes you more powerful, makes you more informed, more connected to reality rather than fantasy.
So in this, I think that, the title Fake President, I think betrayal, right? So that is, because that's really what this book is about. That's really because Trump didn't have a track record before he became president. So now he does have a track record, and you lay out how he actually has betrayed, just like you said, the things he said he was going to do, which was lower drug prices. He said we're getting murdered, that they're getting away with murder. He did nothing. He said he was going to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something better. He didn't do either of those things. So just as you're saying, but the problem is, Ralph, there's very few voices that are actually talking about the substance of Donald Trump, and they all go to the emotion and the hatred and how he's a liar, as if lying got invented when Donald Trump became president. Donald Trump is president because of all the lies, because Barack Obama was a horrible president, because Barack Obama was Donald Trump who smiled at you and was polite in public. Barack Obama made the banks bigger. Barack Obama took us from 2 wars to 7. Barack Obama opened the Arctic to drilling twice whenever Shell Oil asked us. Barack Obama kicked 5.1 million families out of their houses at the behest of Wall Street. Barack Obama put fracking pipes underneath this country. I mean, the reason why we have Donald Trump is because of the failure of the Democratic Party, right?
Correct. They couldn't stand the Democratic Party. They disconnected themselves from blue-collar workers, especially. They never championed unions. They didn't raise the minimum wage. I mean, that's Franklin Delano Roosevelt's cardinal reform. They froze the minimum wage, and Trump is freezing it again. Well, Obama's not president. He's AWOL. He doesn't even challenge Trump. Trump dumps on him all the time. He doesn't even respond. He's a music critic, and he's looking forward to March Madness and the rankings. But Trump's the president now. He's a devastation now. He's the guy who's really crumbling our constitutional framework. He's the guy who they all lie. This guy lies by the hour. This
So
guy lies about really serious things, not, his golf game or what he had for breakfast. He lies. He tells people your air and water are cleaner, and he's unleashing the oil industry and the gas and the coal industry and cutting back the life-saving regulations. He tells people all these things, but I mean, he's even allowing the junk food industry to get into your children's school lunch program. They had more nutritious food, and it was starting to work. Their health result was better. They weren't growing so much fat. He's even reversing that.
so
People got to ask every presidential candidate, every candidate for office, Jimmy. The key question is: look, I've heard what you say you're going to do, and I know your record, and they're not the same. But here's what I want to ask you: how are you going to make me, the citizen, more powerful? Because if we, the people, are not more powerful, getting rid of gerrymandering, campaign finance, corruption, all the obstruction to voting, disallowing ourselves to form unions and cooperatives easily, if we don't get more powerful, it doesn't matter who's up there in Washington. It's a government of the Exxons, by the Pfizers, for the General Motors.
so that's the critiques you make of Donald Trump are obviously factual and correct, right? But
Very factual.
right, but the problem, the only thing I see, the problem isn't Donald Trump per se, even though he is the man in power right now. The problem is that while we all know this horrible stuff about Donald Trump, this is not how the Democratic Party is opposing him. They don't oppose him on those things. They oppose him on Russiagate, and they oppose him on a phone call to the Ukraine. And why did it take them so long to come up with the impeachment? Is because it took them a long time to figure out a crime that the Democrats weren't also complicit in. Right. So the problem is there's no one offering a counter narrative as the Democrats are impeaching him. Nancy Pelosi is passing his entire legislative agenda, Ralph. You know that. They gave him money for his border wall. They fast-tracked his judges. They helped him deregulate Wall Street again. They gave him a tax cut. They just gave him a NAFTA deal to campaign on, right? A victory that he can now campaign on.
You're right. You're partially right. But the tax cut was passed by the Republicans in the House and Senate. Unfortunately,
Okay.
That was passed. They allowed him in the last budget thing to divert money from the Pentagon to build
the wall.
The wall. I think Bernie, when he said it's either corporate socialism or democratic socialism, and I'm going to give examples. It's a very important debate we're going to have, because you can throw out the rascals if you have democratic socialists in the Congress and the White House. You cannot throw out the big bank bosses. You cannot throw out the heads of ExxonMobil. You cannot throw out the heads of United Healthcare Insurance Company. That's one. The second is, and this is the most important, I don't know why Bernie doesn't do this, Jimmy. When he's asked about democratic socialism, they're going to pile the ads on TV. You say, oh, okay. I'd rather have democratic socialism like Denmark, Norway. It had better standards of living, Sweden, Finland. But let's go back to the United States. A lot of people here love Social Security. They like Medicare. They like public libraries. They'd rather have public drinking water departments rather than some global conglomerate. Yeah, and they like the Tennessee Valley Authority in redneck country, and they like 1,000 municipal electric utilities, right? And they like a lot of these things. There must be a lot of democratic socialists in the United States. And I'm just giving you a partial example. They like their fire department. They don't want some insurance company owning a fire department so you didn't pay your premium, let your house burn down. We're not sending the trucks. So they got to have a much tougher stand, like you imply, against the really completely turning the U.S. government over to big business. I mean, every agency now is run by these corrupt nominees whose only qualification is before they came into government, they wanted to destroy the EPA. They wanted to destroy OSHA. They wanted to destroy the Auto Safety Agency. They wanted to destroy the Department of Interior. People don't know that because all his tweets are distracting attention. One of the reasons why he tweets so much is to distract attention.
Yes.
The corruption and the thievery and the stealing in the U.S. government, and the way they're betraying people, the way they are destroying the health and safety. Average life expectancy is going down under Trump. Hey, what's going on here? He's not enforcing the corporate crime laws. No law and order. He takes the sheriff, the federal sheriff, off the corporate crime beat. If you're ripped off by your credit card company, by your bank, by your home mortgage firm, you can thank Donald Trump. He shut these departments down. He shut these agencies down. And some of them used to file law enforcement against his own real estate holdings.
Right.
So he gets a tax cut. He gives a tax cut to himself and his family. All we ask the Trump voters is just be as critical and be as factual as you are when you analyze your sports teams and your league. And we don't want you to be fooled. We don't want you to be flummoxed. We don't want you to be deceived. And that's what you're doing. And this book is all about that.
Right.
I challenge anybody to challenge any factual statement in this book. It uses a lot of Trump's own quotes. The interesting thing about Trump, Jimmy, is he boasts about his misdeeds. You know, he just boasts about doing things. He said, under Article 2, I can do anything I want as president. What? Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Thomas Paine, you can do anything you want as president. We didn't have the American Revolution in order to allow a monarch, a secular monarch, a dictator in the White House, giving the straight arm to the Congress and packing the courts. Well, he's repealing the American Revolution. Yeah. That's what Trump is doing.
So after Nancy Pelosi moved to the right so she could retain the speakership, it made me realize that even if Bernie Sanders wins the presidency, he's going to have to fight the Democratic Party to institute these new programs and policies and Medicare for all and free college and repeal the Pentagon budget. And then he's going to have to fight his own party. So what's going to really have to happen, Ralph, is people are going to have to get in the streets like they're in the streets in France right now, or else nothing's really going to happen, correct?
They got to get into the streets everywhere. And we're not very good on mass rallies anymore. I mean, look at some other countries around the world. Look at Hong Kong. Look at France, like you say. I mean, it's like we're shredding our ability to get out in the streets. Used to have these huge labor rallies, these anti-war rallies, these women rights rallies, and they can't get out in the street. But here's the point. If Bernie Sanders wins, he's going to have to fight less of the Democratic Party because he can't win without a sweep of the Congress. There'll be a wave election, like Reagan had a wave election. And the Bernie Sanders people and representatives will dominate the Senate and the House. The Democrat National Committee is going to have to clean house. Get over it. You represent Wall Street. You represent the Clintons. You represent the compromisers. You represent the phonies who appear to be liberal, but they're not nothing of the sort. That's what's got to be done. And for this to happen, people have got to read. You know, readers think, thinkers read. We believe in reading. You can't simply, take a snippet here and there. I mean, look at this discussion we're having now, Jimmy. What other television program in America can you have a discussion like this? The reason why Bernie can't get his points across on democratic socialism, and he is not asking for government takeover of the corporate manufacturers or anything. It's distribution, it's service, like Denmark or Sweden, etc. The reason why he can't get across, notice they don't give him enough time. He goes on public radio, they cut him off after 10, 15 seconds. They overtalk him. And by the way, NPR has become very biased against Bernie. It's really shocking to see. They've invented this phrase, mandatory Medicare. Huh? Mandatory Medicare. How about mandatory denial of health benefits by Aetna and United Health Care and the phony Medicare Advantage, which is a terrible alternative that they're deceiving elderly people into switching from traditional Medicare to Medicare Advantage. As one doctor told me, with Medicare Advantage, it's not what you pay, it's what you get. It's run by a biggest insurance company in America, and they know how to deny benefits. So all this comes down to what you're saying. People have got not only to elect the right people, they got to give them the mandate. Otherwise, they get betrayed when their representatives go to Washington. We've seen that again and again. And nothing straightens up politicians, even progressive politicians, than street rallies. And not just on weekends. Street rallies surrounding Congress. Street rallies surrounding the congressional offices back home in federal buildings. It's got a lot of big sidewalks there. There's a lot of space to do that. And they've got to keep it up. In other words, when they have a rally, they got to say, we're coming back. We're not going away. It's not going to be a one-time event. And by the way, it only takes 1% of the people, Jimmy. I mean, if you have 2.5 million people over the age of 18 who really roll up their sleeves and they say, I'm not collecting stamps, I'm not collecting coins, I'm not collecting classic cars. My hobby is going to be Congress. That's why we did this. We had a nice response from you last time. This is a fable to make you laugh yourself seriously, to learn how to mobilize in ways no one can stop you, to control your senators and representatives, and to summon them to your own town meetings. It's ratsreformcongress.org. People are ordering them 5 at a time because they want to get together on this. ratsreformcongress.org. A lot of my experience is in this book, even though it's in fable form. The publisher of this book, he's so excited. If anybody wants to buy 500 or more, he'll give it to him for $5 a book, Jimmy, plus shipping. $5 a book. You want to send them to your members of Congress. You want to send them state legislatures. And by the way, they get the message just by looking at the cover, even if they don't read it.
So, Ralph, I just want to, from your epilogue, you say with their multiple, you're talking about Western Europe. I'm speaking of the people of Western Europe getting themselves together after their countries were destroyed during World War II. With their multiple party systems, more choices and voices, their larger and stronger labor unions than in the United States, and their many consumer cooperatives, they demanded and received as voters full health care, 4 weeks or more annual paid vacation, decent pensions, wages, and public transit, tuition-free higher education, paid child care, paid individual and family sick leave, and paid maternity leave. Today in the United States, nearly 75 years after World War II, which we won, we have none of these necessities for our people.
Yeah,
So,
and Trump's going to make sure that never happens, and Trump's going to make sure they're going to strip these existing necessities. He's already cutting a little bit into Medicare in his budget proposal. He's cutting into Medicaid. I mean, that's for poor people. And he's doing all kinds of things, cutting 700,000 people off food stamps or even more, reducing all these necessities of people who are totally defenseless. He's a cruel guy, let's face it. And by the way, he does this regardless of Trump voters and anti-Trump voters. He's betraying everybody, the Trump voters and the anti-Trump voters. But why don't we listen to Western Europe and Canada, for example? Hey, they look like us, you know? I mean, it's a Western tradition. They invaded this country and dispossessed the Native Americans. How come they're able to do it? Because they have stronger labor unions, they have multi-party systems, they have strong consumer cooperatives in places like Switzerland, Germany, big housing co-ops, for example. And above all, they have people who say, look, we're sending taxes to your central government, Germany, France, and we want most of them back.
yeah.
In our country, we sent the taxes to Washington. It goes into these bloated military budgets in American empire that are boomeranging against our own interests and slaughtering all kinds of people abroad. And it goes up the north to Wall Street. Huge tax escapes, huge tax subsidies, huge bailouts. We don't get it back. If you have a conservative voter and a liberal voter, you don't think they're going to agree on this? They're going to say, look, we want our taxes back the way in Western Europe. All the lists that you gave, paid daycare, full insurance, decent public transit, decent parks, good pensions, etc. We want it back. And by the way, a minimal vacation time. They have more vacation time than the union and negotiated agreements in the U.S. have vacation time. They have paid sick leave.
So Ralph, you and I know that Bernie Sanders would have beat Donald Trump. And the problem was that it wasn't racism or Russia or sexism. It was that the people who voted for Barack Obama twice in Michigan, Flint, and Milwaukee would not come out to vote for Hillary Clinton because of NAFTA, because she threw half of their brothers and sisters in jail over a crime bill. You know, that was the problem, right? So again, we've interviewed a guy named Nick Smith who was on this show, who's a Waffle House cook from Virginia. And he said to me that, Jimmy, we all knew that Donald Trump was a loudmouth Yankee who should have got his ass kicked a long time ago, but he was offering us something and Democrats weren't.
That's right. That's right. But there's no excuse on the second round. I don't think you'll have candidates like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren around in the future if they don't win. There'll be such disenchantment, withdrawal of voters, cynicism. Just think, the big U.S. corporations deindustrialized America.
Yeah.
They abandoned factories for communist and fascist regimes overseas who knew how to put workers in their place at $1 an hour, or shut up if you even think of forming an organization of workers, right? And who facilitated that? The so-called free trade, I call it corporate managed trade,
right,
led by the Democratic Party.
Yes.
And they did it again. They did it contemptuously. They did it to Akron, Ohio. They did it to Wisconsin. They did it to Pennsylvania. So no wonder there was a rebellion. Even though Trump lost the popular vote, he shouldn't have come close enough to trigger the Electoral College, which we should abolish. Imagine a country like ours, you come in second and you win the office. Ridiculous. Have you ever had anybody from National Popular Vote.org? They're trying to get the states to pass laws, and they're halfway there, Jimmy. And so that says, we agree, enough states representing 270 electoral votes, we agree that whoever wins the popular vote, we're going to send our electoral votes to them. So that neutralizes the electoral vote provision of the Constitution, because the Constitution gives priority to state law in setting election rules. So we don't have this nonsense where people vote for someone and they wake up the next morning and the person who came in second wins the race. That's why I call Trump the selected president. He was selected by 535 or what people whose names we don't even know. Right. I mean, how many people in this country understand in the history of the United States since 1787, no one has ever voted for a presidential candidate. No one. They vote for the electors, who are anonymous people, unaccountable, but they're loyalists to the particular party on the ballot. So you have Republican electors, Green Party electors, Libertarian Party electors, and so forth. So we have to pay attention to our country as citizens. We cannot delegate we the people to a bunch of charlatans and betrayals, regardless of the political label. That means we got to reserve a certain amount of regular time to be engaged citizens at the local, state, and national level. It doesn't take more than 1%. Almost every major justice movement, Jimmy, in our country has never had more than 1%, sometimes a lot less, of engaged citizens, say 300 to 500 hours a year of volunteer work and mobilizing people to elect state legislatures or members of Congress. What is that? That's not a big deal. I mean, do you know how many bird watchers there are in the country, Jimmy? I'm told there are 15 million, and 5 million are serious, with the binoculars and the diaries. Why don't we have Congress watchers? Give me 2.5 million Congress watchers, and we can turn the country around in ways supported by conservative and liberals.
Hey, this is the part where I tell you where our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then I would tell you to go join our premium, but nobody has a fucking job. So why don't you just enjoy the video?